Hello and welcome back to another episode of the One Kick from Glory podcast. It's another special one. I'm joined as always by Matthew on my right, Craig in the building, and family, friend, you know the deal. Markus is here with us as well. How you doing today, Markus?
Hey, doing good.
Awesome. So, we've had like a mini break from the Premier League football. We had an FA Cup weekend. Saw some fun results happening and some not so fun results. But instead of dwelling on the shame, the disarray, and the absolute shambolic display that was Chelsea, we're going to actually focus really quickly on a player who I think has had an incredible resurgence in his career. I'm talking about Sir Marcus Rashford. We referenced him last week in terms of his many inspirations. I know Marcus was quick to point out his main mentor being Mr. Barack Obama. But I think, again, he got another 2 goals last night for Manchester United in the FA Cup. And he's in the Carabao Cup. Let me get the levels right. Anyway, he got 2 goals last night in the Carabao Cup, and he's starting to really purr. Again, I did say in the last podcast episode that I think having a really good coach is making a massive difference for him. For you, Marcus, do you feel like now the real Rashford is finally standing up and the politician can finally rest?
Yeah, he looks like he's interested in playing football again, which is what you want to see from, young English talent like him. It's been a couple of weeks, so let's see how long the form can go on for, but he's really hit a good spell. Obviously, United have a couple of fixtures coming up in the next couple of games, so we'll see how he does, against the likes of Man City and, kind of Spurs, although, running joke, the Spurs aren't that big of a team, but, there you go. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think he really looks good.
Yeah, I think it's been refreshing to see. It's not just the fact that he's scoring, it's the type of goals, the runs he's making. For you, Craig, as an admirer of great strikers, do you feel like Rashford now might be on track to get back in the reckoning of being potentially one of the great England forwards? It's a long way to go, but do you think he's on track?
100%. I feel like he had a bad injury after the Euros last year, a bad shoulder injury, had surgery, and it wasn't the same. I think he came back too quick after the injury, and I think he kind of stunned his development as well. Plus, he wasn't playing under very good managers as well that were kind of helping him. So now he's got a proper manager, and Ten Hag is a very good manager. So he must have been working with him in training on certain aspects of his game to improve. And I think he's excelled this season. And he's getting better service. He's got better midfielders now, Casemiro. You've got Eriksen and Fernandes is back in form again. So he's got the great creativity of the midfield three that provide him the opportunity to score goals. And not only that, not only his goals, like his work ethic as well. Like the other day, he got dropped because he came to a team meeting late. He didn't sulk on the bench. He just came off the bench and then scored the winner. So it goes to show that, and even after he did the interview, he said to me, it was my fault why I was late. He woke up late for a team meeting. So at least he's admitting and making sure it won't happen again. So it goes to show that his character, he's got a big character, big personality, and it's shown on the pitch now.
I think that's really important, what you're saying is character. I like the fact that Man United themselves didn't admit what it was. Ten Hag said it was a team disciplinary issue and left it at that. And it's a massive credit to Marcus Rashford that he came out and actually said what it was. And also that he came on and scored. I think that really makes a big difference as well. I guess for you, Matthew, just like our final point on Rashford, then we'll move on to some more exciting things. But, thinking of English strikers, you had one in your ranks a number of seasons ago. He also was in your ranks as well, Marcus, at Liverpool, and a striker who I always look back on, and I just wish, he could have had a proper good bill of health to actually fully live up to his full potential. And of course, I'm referring to Daniel Sturridge. When you look at Rashford's career so far, the highs of it and the lows of it, do you think that, because I always look at Sturridge as one of those great strikers that just didn't quite get the rub of injuries and just wasn't quite able to live up to his potential. Do you feel like Rashford, in the path that he's tracking to, will be able to eclipse all that Sturridge did? Because right now, I'd say Sturridge, like as a career body of work has got a better career so far than Rashford.
I think he's on the right track right now. Like I think someone who we know who his time at Ajax is not only good at working with young players, he's also good at working with young talent. Young player and young talent are two very different things. We all know from a very long time, when he first broke on the scene as a young, raw kid, that he was something special. I think I remember him as one of the breakout stars, one of the only shining lights when we got eliminated by Iceland in 2016 in the Euros. His energy, his drive, and his raw, like, lack of fear would have been perfect to help us to get past. That's what we were kind of working with. Like Marcus said before, his time as being an activist and a politician first really hit him in that little 2-3 year period, and his injuries. Let's not forget what happened at the Euros. I think it's taken him some time to really turn around and remind us of the talent he is, and as how he should be the one is capable of leading that line in Manchester United, of that Manchester United line. Not Ronaldo, it should be him. He is, he's come through the ranks. He's a local lad, born through and through. And his talent alone has earned him to be there at that focal point. Now that Ronaldo's gone, he can now focus on the players, on that nurturing that talent even more. And also, like what Craig said, he's got people feeding towards him all the time, looking towards him. And, again, credit to his character after getting all that abuse after Euros, after getting dropped by his manager for being late, but dealing with it in the right way has not affected him. It doesn't seem to have affected him. And it's looking like that slowly but surely. He's not there yet. I want to make that very, very clear. But has the time, if he stays fit, and he's not waiting for any more training sessions. I don't think he's just going to be good enough. He's going to be good to lead the Man United line. We're also looking at potentially another option to lead the England line, just to give us something that a little bit different. He's an option, and we've already got so many options going up front in the first place.
Yeah, indeed, he's definitely an option. And I think that he is definitely well placed to have a good run of his career now. Let's move on from one striker in form to, it's a transfer window. There's lots of deals going on. We are very much aware of a striker that we were looking forward to potentially coming to North London in red and white, but is now going to be suffering in the pit of hell that is Stamford Bridge. No, I'm joking. It's not the pit of hell. That'll be the toilet bowl. But, down the lane. Okay, let's start off on Chelsea. Joao Felix signing. Coming straight back to you on this one, Matthew, then over to you, Marcus, on this. But how do you feel about the signing, and how do you feel in general about Boehly Ball?
First and foremost, I want to give a tribute out to Gianluca Vialli.
Yes.
Chelsea legend, great manager, won us the FA Cup back in 2000. If anything, that was kind of a very small start of our resurgence to where we are today. So I had to get that out there. Tributes to his family, friends, and all that. So thanks so much for being such a great legend. Boehly Ball, Joao Felix, where do I start? I'm actually at a point where it's quite a strange time, because it's like, is it necessarily... We all know what this guy can do. We all know what this kid can do. But is it necessarily going to change the culture that we have in this club, where if things don't go our way after about 5-10 minutes, we just down tools and just quit? I saw that in the game. Not so much in the first game against Man City, but in the second game in the FA Cup. The fact that it was only 3-0 in that first half, I kid you not, I was only a little bit surprised. I thought it could have easily have been more. And let's not talk about those goals. Why are you doing this for a penalty? I will never know. And who did it? Who did it? That chip has run out. You can't live on that goal. It's not 2021. It's not Lisbon. It's Man City, but it's not 2021. How angry I could get. I can't even get angry about the free kick. Great free kick. I can't even complain. Koulibaly. Is there something? This is a guy that we needed, like the football mafia holding to this guy for so long. How would we get him so easily? I mean, like just like that. Is there something that we don't know? Is this another Torres transfer where we just didn't know something we were getting?
He's 40 years old.
Like, what is going on? What is going on? I don't get it. And then, the penalty, that's the worst thing at that time was the players. It was all the players that let us down. I feel sorry for the young guns. I feel sorry for the ones, because they're learning from what the big guns do. If they down tools, I'm going to down tools. I mean, some of them, at least they were trying. I feel sorry, for the likes of Hutchinson, Ball, Trevor Chalobah, who should be starting more, by the way. Gallagher hasn't worked. He's been kind of letting the thing down. Everyone knows about Havertz. Mason Mount is nowhere in close demanding to any more money. He's 300,000, 300 quid. 300 quid, that's all you're getting. Like, and then there's this whole thing with, like, I just want to touch on this game a little bit more. We're turning into that thing. With no offense, Marcus, we're turning into you back in like the 2000s. We kept living off our past glories. They were shouting, flaming.
Brutal.
Yes, we're shouting Vialli, which was great, but they're also shouting Tuchel. Do we not know that Tuchel was also partly responsible for why we're here in the first place? Under like this whole Boehly ball thing. I mean, I'm not too sure. It's a strange thing with the Boehly ball because at the one time it's like we need to stick with this guy. Like I said, he's more justified to keep his job than Conte at the moment because we need to start something of a bit of a dynasty with him. So we're going to have to get a little bit real about where our expectations are right now. Don't get me wrong, he's got his issues sometimes with his substitutions, his press conferencing sometimes, the fact that he's keeping picking the same players that are making mistakes under Tuchel, which is nuts. I mean, Ziyech, ain't work. He can't. It doesn't be working under him. We all know about Havertz. Mendy, unfortunately, is injured. Mason Mount demanding all these. He's stalling for all this money. We've also got a butt ton of injuries. We've also got like 10 injuries. Who's next? Like honestly, like I just think, and this is what he's coming into. Joao Felix is coming into this. He's not going to help us out in the Champions League because he's cup tied.
Not anymore. That rule's been changed.
Has the cup been changed? Rule changed. Well,
so you can play twice different teams. Same
I
season.
need that league form to change. If you can help out in league form, get some creativity, it might buck some of these ideas of some of these players. Maybe they need to just not feature for that not much longer. Maybe they need not to be played. I'm hoping he's able to be played tomorrow because look, like we said it was earlier for Marcus Rashford, after one mistake on his part, albeit it was a mistake, didn't play. And we got some of our ones holding the club to ransom, getting away with absolute murder, and they don't have the stones to even try and play for what it means to play for Chelsea Football Club. We used to have leaders, we used to have generals, we used to have demanders on the pitch who would never have to be playing second best, and they're getting away with it out there. They're absolutely getting away with it, and it's just so frustrating to watch. I don't know where it's all going wrong. It's obviously the big point is the players, but what's Todd Boehly doing is by getting in all these signings. Is this a relegation fight?
Speaking about like what Todd Boehly's doing and your signings, do you think you need any more signings now for this window in January, or do you think it's more a case of Potter needs to pick the players he really believes in, and the rest can just be find their way out the club?
He needs to be a bit firmer with exactly what he wants, because it seems to be that the problems haven't changed since Tuchel left. If anything, they've gotten worse. Now, don't get me wrong. We didn't expect a straight around turn up for him to come in. We thought maybe we'd be just outside the top four. We're 10 points outside the top four. We're also 10 points from 18th. So it's not exactly, we're literally slap bang in the middle of everything right now. We're literally in no man's land. We don't know what we're doing. We're in 10th no man's land, 10 here, 10 there. I think. But this comes with his lack of experience. It wasn't that long ago he was managing a club in Sweden and Swansea and Brighton. Arguably, you can respectfully clubs that aren't fighting on a level that we're fighting on. So there's a lot of stress there. I think he needs to be a bit more decisive. I think he needs have a bit more of a ruthless streak. And with Boehly, these signings have got to start making sense, because you got to realise what they're coming into. It's not just a case of a couple of man changing the culture around here. The culture's rotten. Very rotten culture at the moment. So many fans are undecided about, Potter in, Potter out. You've got a lot of players that are like hamstrung in the club. Our best player is a 38-year-old defender who we got on the free. Even Kepa kind of didn't have his best game on the weekend. Hell, someone actually pointed out that we haven't changed our midfield in like 5 years. We've had the same midfield, albeit from a couple of changes, for like 4 or 5 years. Now that's an issue, and there's a severe lack of creativity in that midfield. You see how, as much as I think Kante his time at Chelsea is coming to an end. It's nice to have that option when he's still there. Granted, he's injured, you can't help that, but you see how integral he is. Because if Jorginho ain't doing it, and after Sunday he ain't doing it, we can always refer back to him. But there's so many answers that need to be kind of put forward. Potter, I don't think Potter's job should be much of a discussion, but he needs to know I think he needs to understand what power he has and what he can do, and just how some of these players just need a bit of a massive reality check, just to like watch and be like, you are privileged and just so fortunate to play for a club like this. I just think after that Champions League, after that Club World Cup, I think you're an easy man right now, and like you don't care.
All right, I'm gonna pick apart some of that in a second. I want to throw this to you, Marcus, because I'm very glad for the wonderful folks at Sky Sports every now and again. Not always, but every now and again they come up with some wonderful gems. I have a list of players on my phone here. Here's the list of signings that Chelsea have made permanently since Todd Boehly has taken over. I'm going to say the name of the player and the pricing, and then I want you to, Marcus, to give us your kind of overall thought process on this strategy. In quotes,
Okay.
Mark Cucurella, £63 million. Raheem Sterling, £47.5 million. Kalidou Koulibaly, £34 million. Wesley Fofana, £75 million. I think that's where I got confused last week about the pricing fee. Carney Chukwuemeka, £20 million. Cesare Casadei, £16.6 million. Gabriel Slonina, £12 million. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, £10.3 million. Amari Hutchinson, free. Benoit Badiashile, £35 million. Andre Santos, £18 million. Not to be confused with the former Arsenal left back, not the same guy. And lastly, David Datro Fofana, £10 million. Of course, there's also coming in the summer Nkunku. I think his deal is, I'm not sure how much his deal is for. And of course, Joao Felix.
65 million.
65 million. And of course, Joao Felix on loan. So over to you, Marcus. How would you evaluate that piece of business, considering this is all from this past summer and January so far?
Yeah, there's clearly not a strategy, is there? Like, if you look at all these players, it's a lot of money. And Todd Boehly's clearly playing Football Manager. So, he's just like, do you know what? Like, this seems like a good deal. Let's go for it. Why not? How much do I have to pay? Can I pay in monthly installments? Okay, yeah, sounds good. I'll do it. I think, individually you can highlight some of these and say, yeah, good signings. Like, Raheem Sterling, good business. Fofana outside of the price tag, good business. Joao Felix on loan, good business. Again, it doesn't, but none of it fits the philosophy. It's just we need players. Where should we get players from? Okay, yeah, let's sign that guy because he's available. You don't see how they're going to fit into a system outside of Cucurella. You don't see how they're Potter signings overly, and I'm not quite sure what Chelsea are doing. Like, so from an actual strategy perspective, I personally don't think there is one. That doesn't mean it won't work out, and Chelsea won't be the first or last club in the history of football not to have a clear strategy. But unlike if you took the list of Liverpool's last 5 years of signings or 5 to 10 signings and you went through the list and you talked me through them, I could tell you why we signed every one of them and why they fit the system and why they fit Klopp's style and why Klopp wanted them and how he envisioned it working out. Some of them did work out, some of them didn't work out, but case in point, they would, in fact, I could even tell you here that the majority of them would all fit a profile between the ages of 20 and 25, not fully at their potential, but at a price in which they're going to possibly double in price within 5 years or 4 years or 3 years, depending on development. Like a player that it fits clearly into a system, so not a diva, willing to work hard, willing to run off the ball, someone that's proven their ability to do all of this. Like these are the trademark kind of ideas of the philosophy behind Liverpool signings, and you see it with almost every one of them, or if not straight away, very quickly as they develop as to why that player was targeted. It doesn't look to me like Chelsea have that system or idea in mind.
No, it does just feel like a chuck whatever at the wall and see how it sticks. I think for you, Craig, when you look at those list of players that I've named there, if you were to be the Chelsea owner, I know, like last week, I asked you from a Tottenham fan perspective. That was unfair of me. I could ask you, Matthew, but that would be too easy. Going through those list of players, if you were to start all over again, what players would you say, okay, I'd sign them because there's definitely a way I could see how it could work based on how they performed so far at Chelsea?
Well, I thought Cucurella would have been a good signing for Chelsea because of what he did for Brighton last season. He was so good under Potter last season. I thought that would be a great signing. Fofana, for when he first started, before he broke his leg at Leicester, I thought he was a very good defender. When he came back, he looked a bit shaky. The other Fofana guy, the striker, I've never seen him play, so I don't know nothing about him, so I can't really talk about him, to be honest. I thought he was quite good in France. Was it France he came from?
Yep.
I think he was quite prolific in France. Aubameyang, I would have left Aubameyang alone because of his reputation. He did well at Barcelona, but he's not the same Aubameyang that we used to know. So I would have left that one alone.
Would you have brought in Koulibaly, considering how he's performing so far? Because I'm going on it based on what they've done, not what they had.
Koulibaly has always been an interesting one because he's always been a good defender. He's been at Napoli for a long time. He always looked good and solid. I was surprised that Napoli finally let him go. Maybe there's something we don't know about him that's why they let him go. Because
well, we're seeing it, aren't we?
Yeah, he's 40. Yeah, that's it.
And then I guess that with the younger guys, you got obviously Omari Hutchinson and Carney Chukwuemeka.
Well, Omari Hutchinson was a bit when Arsenal when Arsenal let him go. He left Arsenal. When he left Arsenal, he was a very talented player, a very highly rated player, up and coming player. I thought, he'll do well for them.
Yeah,
he'll do well once he gets minutes and gets confidence. He'll do well for them.
I think from this list of players, I think Chukwuemeka is probably
a good player. He was very unlucky. Yeah. He was very unlucky against Man City the other day in the league game. He could have scored when he hit the post. If that had gone in, it would have been a different game. City would have to be chasing the game. So it's all about luck and chances taken. So a lot of these young players now that Chelsea are signed are for the future. So I think Chelsea are under a major rebuilding right now. A major rebuilding job right now. So maybe for the next couple of seasons, they're not going to win any major trophies until they rebuild their squad. Because I think what happened, they live, as Matthew said before, they lived off the past. They won the Champions League. They never rebuilt their squad properly. They didn't buy players that they needed in that midfield. You know, Kante was getting old. You know, Jorginho's getting old. You know, who's the other guy they got in midfield? Not Mount, the other one. Kovacic. These guys are getting old. They needed a young, maybe like a player like Trunami from Real Madrid or someone like a Covinha from Real Madrid, someone like that in that midfield and they could have got him. It wasn't that expensive when he went to Madrid as well, so they could have got someone like that just to Kante could mentor them or whoever could mentor them, then they could eventually replace them. So they didn't really, after one challenge, they didn't really invest in the squad properly, I would say. So that's why they're struggling now. They could have all the best managers in the world. They can have whoever they want. They could sack Potter tomorrow, get Pochettino in. They're still going to struggle because it's going to take a long time to rebuild.
I'm going to throw this to you, Marcus, quickly, and I'm going to come to you, Matthew, to somehow make sense of your mostly joke of a club. But if you were to go out into the market now, Marcus, you're Todd Boehly. You've got the cash, obviously. You've got a bad way of doing things. But say he's brought you in as a director football advisor, just for this window. We're in a bad shape. We need to bring in a couple of players, or just to kind of help sort things out. What positions would you target, and who would you bring in, if anyone?
Look, I don't know. I think Chelsea have already made more signings in this window than most clubs will make. And I think, to be honest, if I was brought in as director of football at Chelsea right now, my philosophy would be simple. It would be, let's not sign anybody else. Let's keep things as they are. And let's build between now and the summer a strategy for what we're trying to do with this football club. And then in the summer, I would say let's get rid of every player that doesn't fit that strategy that we're trying to build, or over the next 3 windows, we want these players out, give them their notice, tell them they're no longer needed, wanted, welcome, on the wage budgets they're on, send them all out. And then I would be very clear that any signings that we make moving forward have to fit the system. And I think it starts by saying, we have this guy who has got a reputation of staying at clubs for a very long time, who has a style of football that we brought in because we admire and we liked it. We give him a long-term contract because we want him to be here for a while. What does this man want to do at this football club? Which of the players that are here does he like? What style of football does he want to play here? Which of the players that are here fit his philosophy? And we're going to make 3 signings or whatever it is. Once we've evaluated who's out, who needs then to come in, that are Potter signings that fit his idea, his style. So I can't speak specifically on where Chelsea would do signings, but it looks like Kante could leave. Kovacic is aging. Jorginho comes to the end of his contract. So if we're looking at a midfielder, a typical Potter midfielder would be Alexi McAllister, right? Like, so that's an example, but without the detail of kind of how they're going to navigate through, I could list off 3 or 4 players at Brighton that, with all due respect, I'd prefer at Chelsea than the Chelsea current players in the Chelsea squad and position, which I don't think there's a time in history I would have ever said that before.
Oh, what do you think on that, Matthew?
We need, first and foremost, need a midfield. Our midfield is dying. Like I said, it hasn't changed for the past 4 or 5 years, and it's starting to show its stagnation and just lack of creativity, but lack of ideas, and also lack of goals as well. We were always known for kind of having goals from the midfield, and we simply just do not have that. From likes of going from Lampard to Fabregas, even Mason Mount can chuck in the goal when he wants to, if he doesn't overplaying them, that ego boost. But we need some kind of thing in the midfield. With a striker, it's difficult because if you want the best strikers right now, you have to be first. It's like it's first pickings right now. Had we known, I've said before, had we known, we would have gone for someone like Gabriel Jesus, because after that, who else do you get unless you're willing to pay the big bucks or go for someone a little bit older, but that can still deliver right in front of goal. The strikers market is so tight right now. It's because it's just the teams that have them are not going to want to let them go. Who's going to go for Haaland now? Who's going to go for Jesus? Hell, who's going to go for Lewandowski at Barcelona? Who is? Because they're going to put a tag on him. Even someone like, and Benzema, but Benzema ain't going to go nowhere. He
doesn't no need to.
He doesn't need to.
If you got a striker, Osimhen plays for Napoli.
Who's
big money.
Mbappe's miserable. Who's really going to afford him? And why would he come to us? So as much as I know where we need to improve. I just don't know who we want to sign, because unfortunately as it is, we don't know what our identity is. When you're playing Raheem Sterling at right wing back, I don't think you know exactly what you're doing. And if you're just throwing money at all these players and thinking you're going to patch a hole here, and here, you definitely don't know what you're doing and what your approach is. I think we talk about this. He's got his kids on FIFA. Just find me some good players, throw a dart at them, we'll have them.
Yeah.
Or personally, I feel he's a Pro Evo man. Personally, he's called us West London Blue or something. But it's just bringing in some. I personally don't mind. You know what I do? You know what I think so. I think we've got to run out of time between now and May. May's not that far away, and we're not expecting much from this team getting into any kind of realms of a top 4 or even European footballer. Let's do what we did before and bring in players that we know can play. Bring in some of those youngsters, just like we had in the FA Cup, to get us somewhere in that table. We just start afresh. Let's start planning for next season now. Let's start planning for it now. What more have we got to lose? Honestly, God, what more have we got to lose? Right, both domestic
Relegation.
We're not relegation.
I don't see it happening, but that is what he could lose.
I mean, you were there before once at one point. It's a reality of maybe it's a reality of a lot of us need to see to realise just how serious it is when you've got a bunch of mercenaries in your team. A bunch of players that just don't care. Put in some youngsters. Put in you've got between now and May to fix up your ideas. Maybe getting a Joao Felix might force some of these players that should come out and appreciate this club rather than advertising for somebody else. Be like, you are going to be either part of this program or you're not. There's no if, buts or coconuts. There's no contract negotiation. You're either in or you're out. That's what needs to happen. Let's start looking forward. We can't keep looking to the past. There's a reason why your windscreen is bigger than your big thing in your car. You keep looking forward. That's what we need to do. We've got to keep going forward with whatever that's going to be. So let's just get strict and get real and get disciplined.
Well, speaking of looking forward, we're going to move over to a club that's very forward-facing. Liverpool, saving Arsenal for last. But, I think there's been a lot of criticism of Jurgen Klopp this window in particular. Some of his comments these last few months, seeing a lot of Liverpool fans, not you, Marcus, the other Liverpool fans, the ones that haven't really grown up and don't understand anything about your history, your class and your club, are quite upset about him not being more vocal to the management. There's been some suggestions about, what signings need to be made, and especially in the midfield area, there's been a lot of talk about, even I saw an article from The Athletic, I think, talking about why Klopp's biggest mistake he's made since being manager is not replacing Gini Wijnaldum. Maybe not. But for you, Marcus, looking at your squad as it is, because I think you are very finely poised. I saw a really nice statistic that put Darwin Núñez as the second in terms of like, I think it's like big chances made or opportunities for strikers. He was number 2 behind Haaland, which is incredible, you know, top 5 in the world. So I think for you, looking at your squad as a whole, what would you say needs to be done now in January to kind of get you back in the top 4/top 3? Let's say top 4.
Yeah. Look, I read that article from The Athletic. I thought it was very good actually, and I think that it made some interesting points that, you know, Liverpool's midfield has been known as functional more than technical over the time periods in which we've been most successful. A midfield of Gini Wijnaldum, Jordan Henderson, and James Milner, which, you know, none of them players are fundamentally technically gifted. Gini Wijnaldum may be the most creative of the three of them, and you wouldn't call him a creative midfielder. But at the same time, the thing that midfield did have was legs and passion and aggression and the ability to win the ball back and the ability to cycle the play between our defense and our attacking line, in the sense of our defensive line never felt any pressure because of the fact that them 3 midfielders were always able to break the play up, win the ball back, be functional. That's why Trent, nobody ever talked about him being a terrible defender in our best periods of time. They just talked about him being the best fullback in the world because of the fact that he would whip these amazing crosses in, but he never had to defend because Jordan Henderson would drop him down right, Gini Wijnaldum would drop him down right when needed, and he'd always be well covered. There'd be no problem. I remember the amount of times I remember seeing Gini Wijnaldum on the edge of Liverpool's box in the right back positions, recycling the ball back. And I think what's became clear is we tried to transition our midfield just as we did our strikers, but we transitioned from functional to technical. We signed Thiago, and then a midfield with Thiago and Harvey Elliott in it is a far more technical midfield than the midfield that we've had before, and we've suffered with that technical transfer. Thiago's not quite been where he's at. Harvey Elliott's played way too many games for his age. So I say all this to say that I think those that are criticising the club and Klopp are a little harsh, but at the same time, I think the midfield is the one area in which Jurgen Klopp has never quite known what is the best way to play it at Liverpool, and that especially when it comes down to a technical midfield. He put Carvalho in there. He's popped Harvey Elliott in there. These two are wingers, ultimately young attacking wingers. They're not centre midfielders, and we've made one central midfield signing, actual central midfield signing in 5 years, I think it is, or 5 windows, they said, Thiago. So yes, we need midfielders. Obviously, that's clear. Who? I really love what the article said. I think Joe Willock would be an incredible signing for Liverpool. Like, he is the type of Gini Wijnaldum profile that would be. People would be surprised, I think, what he could do. He's still only 22. He fits that Liverpool model of someone who hasn't quite hit their prime, but is kind of working his way at a club that are a very good club, getting, his teeth in and figuring out what he was, which I think was always Arsenal's problem with Joe Willock, that he didn't quite know what he was or was not really quite good enough to do it at that particular time. But he's gone on to Newcastle, and I'm not saying he's an absolute world beater, but I am saying at 22, I think he's still got the potential to be a very, very clever midfielder in a top team. Just like Jordan Henderson is a clever midfielder in a top team, but not a world-beating midfielder, but has gone on to have a career playing for one of the greatest Liverpool 11s with a guaranteed start. I would like someone like Joe Willock. I think the problem is, Saudi bags over there are loaded and are not going to need to sell him. So to price someone like Joe Willock away from Newcastle would be, upwards of 40-45 million pounds. And I'm not sure that Liverpool either have the money to pay that or would be willing to to pay that. So just throwing out a couple of other names that you guys can then take on and discuss a little further. Obviously, Caicedo from Blackburn. Not Blackburn,
Brighton.
from I say Blackburn a lot on this podcast by accident. Brighton has been linked. He again kind of fits a bit of a kind of Genie Wijnaldum with a bit more defensive edge, framework, little less attacking offerings. And then obviously Matthias Nunes from Wolves, and another one to talk about would be Nicola Barella from Inter. I think Liverpool need one central midfielder at least in this window. I don't know. I think Caicedo may be the most likely out in this window out of the ones I've named there. But yeah, that would be my thoughts.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think for Willock, I think it's just simply the system we were playing at the time when he was at Arsenal was more of a 4-2-3-1. Looking at our system now, I could maybe not to the same extent, but I could see him playing the role Xhaka plays, which is a bit more box to box than Ødegaard, who stays a bit higher up. But I could see him playing that role, and I could actually see him getting a good amount of goals at Arsenal if he was still around. What do you think in that Willock shout?
I think Willock is an interesting choice, because Willock, when he first came to Newcastle, he was scoring goals every game. I mean, he scored like 7 or 8 and 8 or something like that.
Yeah, great.
And I thought that when he came up to Arsenal were going to keep him. I think Arsenal needed the money to buy Ødegaard, so they sold him to get Ødegaard in his replacement. So I feel that he's another one that could come back if Arsenal wanted him back, could bring him back, or Liverpool could buy him.
Yeah, but I also think at the time he just didn't really
fit in. No, I didn't really fit in.
Like, we could see there was a player there, and it's really annoying because I look at him. It's similar to when Ramsey left Arsenal, and in the very next season, the system we were playing would have suited him to a T. Like Ramsey would have fit Arsenal at Arteta's first year. There was a space for him in the squad. You know, it's just a shame that, you know, because of poor management from Arsenal themselves and the player having desire to move on, we just missed out on something there. So.
What about Iwobi? I think he's done well.
I mean, Iwobi would be an interesting one. Obviously, he's never going to make that. He can't go from Everton to Liverpool. That would just be sacrilege. I think it would just. I mean, would you take him at Liverpool, Marcus?
Yeah, no, not a chance. Would I take Iwobi? Not just because of the Everton link, but just because he's one who I also don't think has left Arsenal and quite figured himself out, which is inevitably the case when you move to Everton, because no one's ever moved to Everton and figured themselves out. So yeah, I think for me, the thing about Willock is he's interesting. He's developed himself. He knows how to play. He's even got some goals behind him, some assists behind him, and I think he would actually thrive going back to the highest level. Whereas even if Iwobi was to go back to Arsenal, I don't think he would. I don't think he would be good enough. Whereas if Willock went back to Arsenal, if Willock went to Liverpool, if Willock took that step, I think he could make that step up, and I think that would be a much more interesting one to see. But yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't be taking Iwobi anytime soon.
It was just a suggestion. It wasn't the answer. It wasn't
It's kind of going under the radar a little bit.
Yeah,
I think we forget.
He got injured, didn't it, the other day?
All right, we're gonna. I think we're gonna go on to our last topic for the podcast. I do want to talk about Arsenal and transfers, but I think we might save that for after the big game coming up on Monday, the North London derby. On Sunday. Wow. I'm already ahead of time.
Someone is
Big
ready.
game coming up on Sunday at the Toilet Bowl, the North London derby. Tottenham versus Arsenal. Massive game. We've also got the Manchester derby this weekend, but we'll start off with the North London derby. I'm going to start with you, Matthew, on this one now. Looking ahead to that fixture, everything riding on it, what sort of a game are you expecting, and do you think Spurs might turn up?
I am expecting fiery game, intense game, because this is the perfect opportunity for them to come out and just throw caution to the wind. If you're not going to do well in your season, you do well in your derbies. They lost one, first blood went to you. Nothing would make them happier to get even and draw more blood from you guys. So, as you know, as inconsistent as they have been since the start of the World Cup, which has been very inconsistent, this is now, for them, a lot of the players that have been a team long enough, you know, likes of Kane, the likes of Son, black auxiliaries. I'm talking Tottenham's like core know what to expect, and they're at home as well. And what's worse for them, what good for you, is where you are in the table right now. There's no dispute or argument, not that there ever was, about where the hierarchy comes in North London right now. That will bother them, and it's going to bother someone like Conte. So best believe I've got an idea they're going to throw as much as they can. Expect them to turn up. Whether they'll actually win with all that and it's just huff and puff waving their arms around, there's only one way to kind of find out. So it's going to be, I reckon it's going to be a fun game. I'm going to have my eye very keenly on that because that's got the potential to be the game of the week. I'm more interested in that than the Manchester derby. I mean, the Manchester derby just doesn't have the juice that your one does, because your one goes like way back. So, I mean, fiery characters, whereas the Manchester one's only really picked up in the last 10, 15 years. So this has got some kind of there's gonna be beef on Sunday. There's gonna be some beef.
What about for you, Craig? How are you thinking looking ahead of the derby?
Well, you see, derby games are very difficult to call because normally the team in form doesn't always win. Last season we were in form. When we played Tottenham last season at their ground, we were in form and we lost that game. I remember that game we lost. It was a bad game. We lost back-to-back games after that. We lost against them, then we lost against Newcastle. Cost us top 4. So I'm hoping this weekend, if we go all guns blazing and go for goals and kill them off early, we'll win the game. Because their defence is terrible. I'm sorry, their defence is terrible.
Yeah. What about you, Marcus? Looking ahead to that game, what are you feeling and thinking? And do you think Arsenal will come away with 3 points again?
Yeah, I think the tricky thing about the North London derby is that usually the team that are at home tend to win, and that tends to be the pattern. Tottenham win at home, Arsenal win at home, Tottenham win at home, Arsenal win at home, and again, even last season when Arsenal, like you said there, Craig, when Arsenal are in good form, Tottenham still won at home, and I think that outside of that, there is really no reason to think that Tottenham are going to beat Arsenal. Arsenal are on great form. Arsenal look very good. They've overcome every challenge that has kind of came their way this season so far. It's hard to, on paper, look past Arsenal winning that game. If we was doing a combined Arsenal-Tottenham 11, it would be Arsenal and Harry Kane. Which if Clive could have his way, that would just be an Arsenal 11.
No, I'll have Kane.
Kane and Renketia, yeah.
No. I mean, you'd take Kane at Arsenal. Remember, you pointed out last week on the podcast. But yeah, I think that's the thing, and yet Tottenham are not a million miles away from the top 4. They look poor defensively, but they're getting results. And I think the big thing for Arsenal in this game is to start well. Tottenham do not do well when they going behind in that first half. If you can flood them in that first half, get the goals, get in front, get on top of them, then I would think it would be hard work for Tottenham to come back. And their luck has to run out. You can only go 1-0 down, 2-0 down so many times and keep coming back to win 4-3, 5-4, 2-1. Oh, sorry, 2-2, getting draws and results. You can only do that so much. So I'm going to stick my neck out and say that Arsenal are going to win.
Thank you.
And I'm going to second that and say that, as I said on the last podcast, Tottenham get battered everywhere they go, even in their own home. So that's what I'm expecting. And hopefully that defeat will kind of cause Kane and Son to begin their slow descent out of the club. Because you got to look at Gareth Bale retired this week. This is like my last thing I want to say. And if he had stayed at Spurs like Kane did, he would have won a grand total of 0 trophies. Instead of the 20 he got from moving to Real Madrid. And I think that's a testament. And it's actually a good point. I forget what player said this. I was reading a quote from a player the other day, and I need to really find who it was. But they said that at the end of the day in football, the trophies really do matter after a certain point. You know, going back and seeing what you've actually achieved as a player does really matter. And I think for Kane and Son, they might not say it now. They might be happy at Tottenham in air quotes, but you know, after a certain point, and this is what happened with, you look at Grealish, look at Declan Rice, even when his comments at the World Cup. You know, when you're seeing your peers like Phil Foden winning, you know, playing in the Champions League, winning the Premier League. For Jack Grealish, he wanted a piece of that. Now he's gotten it. When you're looking around you and you're seeing your age mates doing bits and winning stuff, you're going to want a piece of that too. And I think that's going to be the key metric. You know, imagine if Declan Rice moves in the summer and he wins a trophy before Harry Kane. You know, that's what last year with West Ham in the run in the Europa
League.
Yeah, I was annoyed that I was a bit sad for them that they couldn't go all the way, because I think that would have been seismic if he had won the Europa League last season with West Ham. I don't necessarily think he would have the same thought process of actually I want to play Champions League now, because they would be in Champions League, and also it would give him a thought of actually we're going somewhere as a club. And obviously this season they're really just inconsistent. But, you know, all these things count. And I know he's a proud West Ham guy. He loves being a captain. Those things are really important to him. But ultimately with players, your career is short. And when your age mates are doing up trophy. I mean, Dominic Solanke has a Premier League trophy for crying out loud. Yeah, he was with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
He has one. Dominic Solanke has a Premier League trophy. I'm sorry, Harry Kane. If Solanke has a Premier League trophy, you need to get one too.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all. And on that note, I think we'll call it a day.
That's mad.
But thanks for listening. If you have any thoughts about the North London Derby, please let us know. And also, if you feel like, you know, maybe trophies don't matter, that's okay. And let Kane stay where he is. But like I said, Dominic Solanke has got more trophies in his career than Harry Kane. And I think that says everything about everything. Take care and have a good rest of the weekend.
Peace.